Alright, we're back, and this is one of those recordings where I got to get it out the way before it comes out my head. So I'm reading Accelerationism. I didn't read critical theory all the way because I just couldn't do it. It was the same thing as Heidegger. It's like the ideas in there are like the ideas within critical theory and the ideas like with Heidegger, it's like they're talking about stuff through language and prose that is unnecessarily complicated. Like there's no reason to be talking about this stuff. Or you're talking about it when somebody done already talked about it better than you did. You know what I mean? Like with Heidegger, if you read Zen Buddhism, you read Hinduism, you read any of those very phenomenological Oriental philosophies, you're going to understand Heidegger. You're going to understand Heidegger. Like way better than if you actually read Heidegger. And with critical theory, the whole thing behind critical theory is it's how do we look at the world? Is what we're seeing how it's actually appearing, or is there something behind what is actually there? Critical theory essentially says that most of the stuff we look at is really coming from the lens of forces behind it, and we have to interpret the forces that are coming from behind it in order to understand the thing that we're actually looking at. What we're actually looking at is a lie. That's really what critical theory postulates. So once you understand that, you don't have to read them, and you're going to get frustrated reading them. But this accelerationism reader that I have is literally called Accelerate, and it's doing pretty well. But going on to the main ideas behind this actual recording, we're going to talk about accelerationism, emancipated labor, some capitalism, and all that other sorts of stuff, right? So the main thing with capitalism is that capitalism, at least late capitalism, where we are now, is gotten to a point to where the ability of the human being, or the autonomy of the human being, is not able to satisfy the need of capital to be used, right? The human being cannot use capital the way that it would like to be used. You know, like it's just to the point to where capital occupies more and more space, and the human being only has, you know, a set amount of ability to buy out the space that capitalism deterritorializes and uses. And also, we're just broke, right? So, with that in mind, capital needs other alternatives. And we've seen that, right? With the Industrial Revolution, okay, capital needed a way to increase the means of its production, so we had the Industrial Revolution. We had better technology. Then capital needed the means to acquire information to advance technology itself. So then we got science. We got MIT. We got the information technological revolution and all that other sort of stuff. Now that capital has the means to acquire information to increase technology, to further accelerate itself, now capital needs a means to buy itself out. Capital needs some type of way to fulfill itself, and the human being just is not able to do that. Really, the only real use of the human being currently is to sort of feed certain forms of energy to technology in order for capital to sustain itself. That's really about it. That's really the only thing that the human being does currently. But once, capital finds a way to do that for itself, the human being will be completely out of the equation. So that's really what capital is trying to do. Capital is trying to figure out the means by which, okay, what can I do that can allow for the sustain, like the maintenance of myself, and not only the maintenance of myself, but what can I create that can allow for the destruction of old forms of myself in order for stronger forms to reverberate out of myself, kind of like the phoenix, right? That's sort of what capital wishes for. And the, theoretical solution for that is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is literally the consciousness of capital. Capital established its mineral consciousness, right? Because within the occult you have mineral, plant, and you have animal, right? So the mineral aspect of capital came about through the Industrial Revolution. It gained a physical existence. It gained a physical body. The plant aspect, the proliferation of itself, the proliferation of, this body and the vitality of this body was gained through information technology. And now that it has the vitality and the blood with codes and information and all this other sorts of stuff, it needs the animal. It needs a consciousness. And artificial intelligence is the promise, and it's the means by which capital can gain its own consciousness. And once it gains its own consciousness, it can intellectualize, articulate, understand its own needs without a human medium. That's the thing with capital. Now, the thing with the human is that once the human, is in this process, the human honestly will be canceled out, right? The human will be canceled out in the future of capitalism. And the only way that the human can survive is through objectifying itself. And you're seeing that now with looks maxing and, the K-pop shit and other sorts of stuff. People are, even OnlyFans, people are objectifying themselves to the will of capital, right? You're, with looks maxing, you're more so trying to create the aesthetic that capital wishes, in your organism. With K-pop, it's like a certain thing sells. Okay, this is what sells. Go to the plastic surgeon. Go ahead and change your facial features to this, and this. And, you're straight. And it's a mockery, right? Because, the original form of beauty, the original form of, mogging is not that beauty fits, not the perfection of beauty, right? It's the anomalous nature of beauty. It's the fact that this should not exist. This should not be here. How the fuck did this get here? Type thing. Like with sacred geometry and Fibonacci sequences and all this other sorts of stuff. These numbers are too complex for human comprehension. And yet these numbers, fractals and all this other sort of stuff, we can't comprehend the combinations of these things. We can't comprehend the equations behind these things. And yet these things are constantly in nature, right? You see a really beautiful woman, there's no reason for that woman to be that beautiful. She has ugly ass parents, but she's beautiful, and it's the anomalous nature that creates that beauty, right? like when you upgraded yourself, when you like bettered yourself in life, it's the anomalous nature of what you are now versus what you were then. It's the difference that makes a thing beautiful. It's the attaining of difference and intensity and all this other stuff that makes something different. That makes something beautiful. Not necessarily, not perfection completely. And it may be perfection, but beauty right now is understood as what capital deems as what is beautiful and not what the organism itself sees beauty as for itself. And with the canceling of the human being, and like with the human, that's really what's going to happen, is that you're going to have it to where you're going to have to objectify yourself in order to stay within the capitalist system. You're going to have to objectify yourself, and you're going to have to give up your memes and give up your codes. You're going to have to give up your mimetic information and your codes in order to further evolve the information technological framework that capital lives off of. That's the only way that you're going to be able to stay within capitalism, because that's the only use that you have within capitalism. And going back to Marx and all this other sorts of stuff, this dystopia, like within Hermeticism, you have the law of polarity, that honestly, there's no such thing as opposites. It's really just that you're on a certain part of a pole. You're on a certain part of a street, but there's really no opposite on that street. There's no opposite with this dystopia, even though it may seem totally bad, because the only thing that the human being can do is emancipated labor, which is what, the whole project of Marx is for, is emancipated labor. How can one work how can one work without that work, the surplus value of that work, going to the master, right? And now we have it. Now we have it with, this. And that's why, like in the Bible, it says, don't take the freaking mark. Because as soon as you take the mark, you go into that former path that I was talking about, where you're stuck. You're stuck within, you're literally a part, you're literally a blood cell within AI. You're not even an individual anymore. Despite the hardships that might come from being outside of the capitalist system, you have the promise of emancipated labor. And what emancipated labor is, and what that means, is that individuals will have the ability to work and to labor within the tradition that they deem, right? So if I'm doing something, I get to determine why I'm doing that thing, right? I can say, you know what, it's just a principle. I can say, you know what, that's just the way that I am. I can say, I'm doing this because everybody before me did it this way. I can create statements, motives, and tap into reserves within myself that aren't connected to capital, but can still produce a laboring and working attitude inside of me. A laboring and working attitude that, uses my energy in order to, pretty much converts my energy that I put in, by working and all that other sorts of stuff, into the consummation of something else. And that's really, and again, this goes back to the traditionalist project, the fact that the whole goal of this, what we truly want, is to be able to work and to have occupations that represent a higher ideal, that represent the beyond human. And that's what emancipated labor and stuff can offer. And that's what the death of capitalism and this despair can offer. You know, it's a good thing that everybody is depressed. I would be kind of sad if we weren't depressed. We should be depressed. You should be feeling depressed. You should be feeling anxiety, because that's a normal reaction, and that's a reaction that your body and your mind is telling you, and it's saying, hey, the life you're living is a lie. You should be living a different life, right? If you weren't depressed and anxious with the way the world is, that would be problematic, because that would mean that the evil that's within the world is synergistic with your nature, right? And then I would have to question you as a person at that point, right? So this is good, right? It's kind of funny how Marx and Evola can sort of come together here, where we have this ability to transcend beyond just, this mercantile shit into being in the world, in a way that's more than human, and also emancipating ourselves from capital. It's just kind of funny that Marx and Evola kind of come together. Even Evola, all of them come together, when you consider Crowley in this too. Because at the end of the day, when this happens, people are gonna fuck with each other due to being a part of the same type of current. So it's gonna be, I fuck with you because we align with the same thing. So that brotherhood that Thelema advocates for, that brotherhood that comes from, I'm following my true will, you're following your true will, and we're both helping each other follow our wills. That form of brotherhood can be created through this anxiety and through this depression that we conquer, if we're able to conquer it. And only a few people are going to be able to conquer it, because at the end of the day, right, what did Marx say that the masses are going to do? They're going to be religious. They're going to have the religious attitude. They're going to need principles and attitudes and safety and security given to them. They can't find it on their own. What does Evola say? Evola says that his philosophy is for the elite. Only a certain few people are going to get it. Everybody ain't going to get it, bro. What did Aleister Crowley say? Aleister Crowley said, man, this philosophy is not for the weak. It's not for the weak. You have to be strong in order to be this way. And our philosophy only helps out the strong within man. It helps out. It wishes to help that which is within man, that wishes to persevere and to strive. It's not helping out that within man that pities all the time. We're not doing that shit. And if you go even more far down the extremes, the Brotherhood of Saturn, the Brotherhood of Saturn says love is the law. Love is the law. Love under will. And they add pitiless love. They don't even just stop with love is the law, love under will. They add pitiless love to that thing, bro. So this is what's finna happen. This is the promise. This is the hope that with the death of capitalism and the refusal to be objectified, we can create the brotherhood, we can create the traditional society, we can create the emancipated individual, the free, unalienated individual that all three of these thinkers talked about. And that, I think that would be kind of nice. I think that would be kind of cool. But anyways, I'm heading back in. So, peace out.